Hi, my name is Lara Dahl, and I'm going to tell you today about being what it's like to be a musician and also a college professor. I am the mother of Julia, who is in 3rd grade, and also of Mac and Elise, who are in 1st grade. So you may know some of my kids. When they are asked what their mom does, it's a pretty random answer to say my mom is an oboe player, and more normal to say a teacher, but I am an oboe player, and what that means is that I play the oboe in Atlanta. I play and earn money by playing the oboe, but I'm also a teacher, and I teach at Georgia State University, which is a college, and I teach the oboe there as well as some other classes. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about both parts of that career. So my job title at Georgia State University is I am a principal senior lecturer of oboe. Basically, I'm a professor of oboe. And in order to have gotten that job at Georgia State University, I had to have a doctorate. So after high school, I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree, then I got a master's degree, and then I got a doctorate degree. And that was an extra 9.5 years of schooling. And at the end of that, I became Dr. Dahl. And I am not a medical doctor. I cannot fix your broken bones or diagnose you, but I am a doctor of oboe, which means I know a whole lot about this instrument. So it's a very specific type of career, and that's why I say it's pretty random. You don't meet a lot of oboe players, and especially you don't meet a lot of oboe players who do this professionally for their job. There are just a very few of us in Atlanta and a very few of us around the world. So for Georgia State University, I teach students how to play the oboe, and my students that I have that are playing the oboe specifically are music majors. They are going to do something with music in their career. One of them is going to be a composer, one of them is going to be a band director, one of them is going to play professionally or hopes to play professionally. So there are different things that you can do within music, but the students that play the oboe, they are my students, and I work with them every week, one-on-one, to teach them how to play the oboe. Part of playing the oboe has to do with an oboe reed, and I also teach my students how to make oboe reeds. So if you see here, you can see a little hole there in the tip of this reed. This is a double reed instrument, and it makes vibrations by the 2 pieces of cane vibrating against each other. That's how it makes its noise. So that is a reed. So my students are learning not only how to play their instrument, but also how to make their reeds, which is a very difficult and complex skill to learn. It takes many years. So here's the oboe. So a lot of times people think of oboe as being the snake charmer instrument. That is one of the predecessors of the oboe. It's very similar. It sounds like that. You can hear that snake coming out of the basket. And Peter and the Wolf, it's the duck. That wasn't quite right, but you get it. That's the duck. The oboe tends to be used a lot in movie soundtracks when someone's falling in love or dying. It's the emotional instrument. So when there's like sadness, that's when you're going to hear the oboe. So I teach my students at Georgia State how to play oboe, but I also teach other classes. So you're used to having classes of about 20 students at Crabapple Lane Elementary, but my classes, I have one that's 120 students, and I teach them music appreciation. I teach them about classical music. These are a lot of students who've never heard of Mozart or Beethoven, or maybe have heard their names, but don't know anything about them. So it's kind of similar to your music class that you have with Mrs. Walker. I also teach another class that has about 50 students in it, and I'm teaching them how to read music. These are students who haven't played instruments before. I'm teaching them how to read music and how to count and basic concepts of music. So I teach both of those classes as well. In terms of the other part of my job, which is playing the oboe, I am asked frequently to come and play, this is before COVID, to come and play with different groups. So there's a lot of variety in my career. I get to do a lot of different things. I'm called a freelancer, which means that I don't work specifically with any one musical group, but people will ask me to come and play with them, and I freelance with them. So I will get a call and say, we need you to come play at Peachtree Christian Church this Sunday. And I'll say, great. And I'll show up and I'll get the music there, and we'll have one rehearsal, and I'll look at the music. And because I am a doctor in oboe, I can read the music from the first time. It's called sight reading. I've worked a lot and practiced a lot so that I can be able to look at music and be able to play it from the very first time. We'll have a rehearsal, and then we'll have our concert. I've played with the Atlanta Ballet. If you've ever gone to the Fox to see the Atlanta Ballet perform the Nutcracker, I've been in that orchestra before. I've played with the Atlanta Opera. I've played with the Atlanta Symphony, and then I play with a lot of churches around town just as I'm called. So that is a freelancing musician. What I love about it is there's a lot of variety. I get to play a lot of new music. I get to play with a lot of different colleagues, a lot of different musicians. It's not the same group of people time after time after time, but it's always interesting to see who's going to be there when I go and play. We call it a gig. So when I have a gig, and they are random gigs, and I go as needed. So that is my side job, and then my full-time job is I teach at Georgia State University. I knew from a very young age, I knew once I was in high school, I loved the oboe. And I knew from a very young age that I wanted to teach the oboe at a university. And there's not a lot of people that play the oboe, but there are very few jobs for oboe teachers in a university. And so I consider myself very, very lucky that I have a job at a university. It's a very competitive field. And in terms of money, I do not make much money. I make as much or maybe even less than your teachers do at Crabapple Lane Elementary. You would think, wow, teaching at a university, that's got to be a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. My starting salary was $20,000, I think maybe $23,000, and it's gone up since then, but it's not something that I do for the money. I do this because I love it. If you want to make a lot of money, you should probably be a lawyer or a doctor. But I don't know anybody who loves their jobs as much as I do as a lawyer or a doctor. That's not to say there aren't people out there who do, but I love my job, and I just feel lucky that someone will pay me to do what I love. Sorry about that. So that is the starting salary. It's pretty rough, but I do it because I love it. And then I get paid for doing gigs as well. So for example, I get asked to do a rehearsal and a concert, and I'll get paid about $200 to do those things. So not a lot of time. That pays pretty well. Let's see. The rewards of my career obviously are that I love it. And in terms of being a college teacher, I love working with students of that age who are really independent for the first time and who are learning more about who they are and what they want to do. I love helping shape students' futures who are going into music. And because I get to work with them one-on-one every week, I get to have a really close relationship with my students, and I stay friends with them through the years. So I have students who I've been at Georgia State for 16 years who now have families and kids, and we get together, or they have careers, and we stay in touch. And I love that I get to have close connections with my students. A virtual place toward my workplace. You're in my office right now. Since COVID, I've been working mostly from home. A student made this for me. This is my oboe playing dog, Bobo. See? We're twins. Here's my oboe stand. Got my computers. I've been teaching a lot virtually, but I also go downtown to my office, and I can't show you that here today, but when you look out the window of my office, I have this great view of the Ferris wheel in Atlanta. I'm just 2 blocks away from that, so I'm right in the middle of downtown. And I spend a lot of time also in bigger classrooms doing rehearsals with my students. And I also spend a lot of time in our recital hall where we have a stage. So that's my workplace. And let's see, any good stories? When when you play the oboe, you saw how small this reed was right here. Literally, the only air I can get through the oboe is that big of an airstream. So when I play, you might have noticed that nobody looks really good when they play the oboe. And when you're playing, you have this extreme amount of back pressure because I'm just getting this tiny amount of air. And so I take a great big breath and then I'm blowing at a very fast speed, but it's a very small amount of air. So what happens to an oboe player is that all that oxygen we took in when we took a breath, we're getting so little of it through, and the rest of that oxygen turns into carbon dioxide. It becomes stale air. And if you don't get rid of that stale air when you take a breath, you can start to feel really terrible, like you're gonna pass out. Well, in high school, I was really nervous about this upcoming solo, and I kind of forgot to breathe. I kind of forgot to let out that stale air and take in the fresh oxygen. And so I was playing. I had this long note. That's how the solo started. And I was playing this long note, and all of a sudden the world just went black. I was blacking out, literally blacking out. And as the world turns black and I'm hearing this roaring in my ears, as I start to come out of that, I hear this really, really terrible note. Like the orchestra sounds great, and then there's like this, and I think, oh my gosh, whoever's playing that should stop playing. That sounds terrible. And then I realized it was me. And I was still playing my oboe. I was still playing the solo, and I blacked out, and I don't even know what note it was, but it was terrible. And so when I realized it was me and I'm still playing, I finished the solo. Luckily, I had it memorized because I still couldn't see in front of me. I finished the solo, and everybody's like, what happened? I blacked out. I didn't fall off the stage, thank goodness. I didn't land on the floor. I made it through, but I definitely blacked out while playing. So typically, playing the oboe is not a dangerous career, but you do have to be careful and make sure that you get enough oxygen and that you get rid of all the stale air so that you can feel good while you play the oboe and not black out during a performance. So that's a little bit about the oboe and being a musician, and also about teaching at a university. So if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm sure if you know any of my kids, they could pass it on to me. So hope you have a great day, and that's my career. Thanks.